Hello, everyone. We're giving everyone a few moments to join from the waiting room. I see that people have joined, so thank you so much for taking the time to spend a few minutes with us to talk about a very important project. If you can go to the next slide. As a community, as a field, we are continuing to explore new ways to provide research access options to people living with ALS. And this is our monthly series focusing on expanded access, or EAPs. I will give a brief presentation to share where we are with some of our projects, and then open the floor for questions. You can always type your questions in the Q&A box. Next slide. So as you know, EAPs are a relatively new concept to ALS. In fact, just a few years ago, just before the pandemic, there were very few options. In fact, I think we were the only center offering some single center EAPs prior to the pandemic. But then things really changed when the Act for ALS was signed into law at the end of 2021. And so we had previously, acquired some operational experience with EAPs, as I said earlier, but then it was really when the NIH started funding large-scale EAPs that EAPs could reach more people, both in terms of number of individuals that can participate and number of sites, so geographic distribution. So specifically, the first round of NIH-funded expanded access programs started in 2022 with the Trialos EAP that was open at 25 sites. And then the subsequent year, we and others had a few EAPs funded of different compounds, predopidine, RAPA, CNM-Au8, and some of them are led by us at Massachusetts General Hospital, and then other colleagues lead other programs. For example, the CNM-Au8 program is led by Dr. Andrews at Columbia. And so these programs significantly increase the number of sites and participants in the EAPs. And then the most recent EAP that was announced a few months ago is the EAP of ibudilast, led by our colleague, Dr. Bjorg Orkrason at the Mayo Clinic in Florida. So very excited about that. And these rounds of grant funding continue, and so hopefully there will be new EAPs funded later this year. Next slide. So we have been also, with our colleagues, also been sharing a lot of our knowledge about EAPs and the experience. And here, Catherine kindly prepared a slide that summarizes, I believe, the first 5 articles that we published. They're all available open access. So you can just click on the link or use the QR code for the most recent one, or click on the links for the previous ones. So again, in this kind of, over the last 2 or 3 years, we have been gaining a lot of experience with all of this. And so these first 5 papers, we have others in the pipeline, and hopefully they will be published soon, share our experience. And the reason for sharing the experience is because we want investigators, companies, researchers to become more familiar with EAP options and the mechanics of that, how to actually do it, because we are hoping that other people will also open more EAPs and make it more broadly available. So if you have any interest in reading more about how to set up an EAP and how these work, these are our first 5 papers, but again, there will be more coming out soon. Next slide. So let's talk about, from the point of view of somebody who's interested in EAPs. So where do you even start? Well, there are many organizations that provide information about EAPs. Certainly, we're not the only one. I will just share here what we have done in collaboration with our Patient Advisory Committee, which is a fantastic group of people living with ALS and caregivers. They helped us first launch and then revamp in a second stage our page about expanded access. So please check out our webpage. We have a number of pages and kind of articles and news, and also a nice Q&A section where, if you're just starting out and you're curious about EAPs and what they are, I think this is a good place to start with some sort of easy to digest material. And again, thank you so much to all our patient advisors and the community advisors who helped us make this page. Next slide. So let's say that you are from a different perspective now, you're interested in potentially participating in an EAP. So what's available? Well, a few EAPs have completed enrollment and others are actually enrolling or about to enroll. So let's review options here. So the Predopidine EAP2 that we manage from the MGH here, and that's funded by the NIH thanks to the Act for ALS in collaboration with Prelenia Therapeutics. That's already been up and running for a while. More than 200 people have enrolled at a little over than 30 sites across the US. At this point, we are no longer enrolling more participants. We're following the people that have been enrolled because the protocol allows to enroll about 200 people, and then we follow them for up to 2 years. So we're not in the enrollment phase anymore, but we are in the follow-up phase. Next slide. So this other EAP, the EAP of CNMAU8, that's managed by Columbia University, Dr. Andrews, who was a speaker on this webinar series. And that has already enrolled about 180 participants. And Dr. Andrews gave a fantastic webinar a couple of times here with updates. I'm sure we will invite her back. Actually, Catherine, we should definitely invite Dr. Andrews back to talk about this EAP. Again, at this point, I believe it's no longer enrolling, but there's a lot of people that are on the drug and are being followed. Next slide. So what's enrolling? Well, there is this study, the RAPA 501 EAP is actually enrolling right now. This is a smaller study that's managed at MGH in collaboration with RAPA Therapeutics and Everything ALS. And this is a little bit of a more complex study. That's why it's smaller, because this is not simply a drug. It's actually a cell-based treatment. What that means is that participants have their, cells, T cells, taken from their body and then expanded and reprogrammed in the lab and then reinfused. And so it's a little bit more of a more involved procedure. That's why this is only available at 9 sites, and the total number of participants is 40. A lot of participants have already been enrolled, but I know that they are looking to find new participants and offer that to more people. So if you have questions about where are the sites and who to contact if you're interested, we have this QR code and the link to clinicaltrials.gov that provides the information, the contact information. And also very grateful to Catherine, who has been preparing these slides and also is available if you have any questions. Next slide. The ibudilast EAP, that's the study that's led by our colleague, Dr. Bjorn Oskarsson from the Mayo Clinic. This study is in startup and the target enrollment is 200 individuals. That's also a large trial. We'll definitely invite him back to give us more updates. And if you have questions about, where are these sites and where could you enroll in the trial? The trial is also managed in collaboration with Wide Trial, and you can look at their website, and you can also check out the QR code. So if you want to consider enrollment in this ibudilast EAP, again, that's about to start enrolling, and it's a large study. So feel free to contact one of the sites. Next slide. So why do we think these EAPs have been important? Well, since 2022, basically over the last 3 years, we and others, in collaboration with other colleagues, as I mentioned earlier, we have been looking to innovate research in ALS through EAPs. That's actually in response to the Act for ALS and the NIH-funded EAPs that I just described. So what these EAPs have allowed us to do is, number one, obviously to provide access to a number of different therapeutics which are in development for ALS to a large number of people at different sites. And that allowed us also to collect a lot of biomarkers and other outcome measures. So all of this is now feeding research. It's now being used for research and will continue to be used for research. So these EAPs have very strong research goals, and that research is actually going on right now. So it's not only for access, it's also to contribute to our understanding of ALS. And that's really the innovation, because these EAPs have been conducted with innovative methodology, and also, again, to provide important research data that can help move the field forward. So they're basically run like a standard kind of top-notch clinical trial with very rigorous collection of data, biomarkers, and a very robust infrastructure. In fact, one thing that I will say, as I said, just before the pandemic, we were perhaps the only site offering EAPs. Now, EAPs have been offered at over 50 sites around the country that allowed us to help build infrastructure in collaboration with many stakeholders in the field, so that many more people now are familiar with EAPs. Next slide. So again, how are these programs helping to build a landscape for future research and for ALS research in particular? So there's a lot that we could say. I'm just summarizing a few things here, and obviously more papers will come out. As I shared earlier, we have published some of our experience already, but I'm sure that we will continue to do so. A few examples here. For example, the CNM-AU8 EAP was the first attempt at fully remote enrollment across the United States. So Dr. Anders and her team worked in close collaboration with Synapticure to allow enrollment of people who are in very remote areas. And in fact, they are now on treatment thanks to that methodology. So this was really a good example of a decentralized study. In terms of the predominant EAP, we have included a large number of sites, including sites that are small community hospitals or neurology private practice groups, to build capacity for research at these sites. And in terms of the RAPA EAP, well, that's a little bit smaller. As I said, the treatment itself is a little bit more complex because it's a cell-based treatment. And that has helped develop the expertise in this type of interdisciplinary infusion of cells at different centers. You know, traditionally, cell therapy is actually reserved for oncologic indications, meaning for cancer, like lymphoma or leukemia. Those type of departments generally do this type of treatments. And now to really expand that expertise has really allowed the centers that participate in to develop stronger ties with the oncology groups, and in preparation for more, hopefully more cell-based treatments for ALS. And so we have, gained a lot of operational expertise, and most importantly, all the data and all the samples that are collected from NIH-funded EAPs are then deposited in a central repository that's managed by the NIH and the Foundation for NIH. That's actually being built right now. All the data is actually now in the process of being transferred there, and the samples. And that means that all of these data and samples will be available for additional research by any researcher who may ask the NIH for access to those data and samples. And so what that means is that the research is not just limited to the research on that particular drug in the context of that particular EAP, but because of this open science principle and broad data and sample sharing, there will be opportunities for more, for essentially helping research beyond the walls of the EAP itself, right? Beyond the treatment that's being offered in the EAP. Next slide. And so as always, we want to continue to provide you with updates. And now we have these, 2 webinars per month. And the second Thursday of every month, we spend time talking about expanded access. And so the next time for this webinar series will be May 8th. And then we have platform trial updates or other studies updates the fourth Thursday of every month. Very excited that for April, we had Dr. Margaret join us. He's at Dartmouth Hitchcock and is one of the principal investigators of the Prevent ALS study. So very important to know about this other NIH-funded study that's especially relevant for people with familial ALS or genetically based ALS. And then we will resume our platform trial series in May with a discussion about the platform trial regimen G or the platform trial with our colleagues from Denali Therapeutics. This regimen was recently closed, and so we wanted to take the opportunity to answer questions from the patient community. And so we will be available to talk about that on May 22nd. And all these webinars are recorded and posted, including the slides. So please feel free also to watch previous recordings of previous EAP series or any other webinar that we had. And again, we will continue to invite more people on this webinar series. Yeah, so I'll take some questions. So the first question, I want to make sure I understand the question. So the reason is there any reason to withhold real-time disclosure of EAP fundings? I don't think that there's any withholding. So I just want to make sure I understand your question. So normally, as in any study, we collect all the data and then we share the results by way of publications, because some of these analyses aren't this complex, and so they take time and effort from the statisticians to share. But again, the data and the samples then are will be deposited into the public repository for again public knowledge and public review. So right now, I can tell you, for example, the Trialos EAP that ended, I believe, last year. We are right now in the process of publishing the paper, submitting the data to clinicaltrials.gov, and also sharing all the samples with the NIH. So I think that's it's as fast as it gets in terms of collecting all the data. The data has to be collected in a rigorous way, and that means that it's also cleaned, verified, analyzed. So that's again, that's the process. So we're trying to again publish as quickly as possible. So there's another question, a good question about, does conducting an EAP enhance a private sector company's likelihood to get an FDA approval? And so basically, I mean, I guess the question is if having an EAP will increase the likelihood of getting an approval. I don't think so. I mean, I think having an EAP gets you more data, that gives you more data on a section of the population that normally does not participate in trials. So, for example, people who are in later stages of the disease, or people that couldn't get into the clinical trial. So it gives you some data, but it gives a little bit of a different type of data. So again, I think it's not necessarily required for FDA approval, and it's not necessarily enhancing FDA approval, but it does give a broader picture of the drug itself. So I hope that answers your question. So I see that there was an ALS news article about a different compound, TRE 515, that could be in an expanded access program. I actually am not familiar with this compound. It would be great if more people obviously set up different expanded access programs, but I'm not aware of that drug specifically. Question, is the EAP available in Canada? Well, it's the EAP is actually, the EAP process is an FDA regulated process that applies to US institutions and kind of US based sites. I believe that Canada has a different process that's perhaps similar, but it has a different name. And I'm sorry, I'm blanking out on the name of the process in Canada, but it's a kind of a similar concept, but it's a different, because the regulatory authority for Canada is Health Canada, not the FDA. We do have a few people who have traveled from Canada to participate either in an EAP or a clinical trial at a US site. So they go back and forth basically for study visits. So that's definitely possible, but the physical location of the site is in the US. So questions about, new trials, new EAPs, and, when are we going to have new regimens in the HEALEY trial, and also how are the NIH changes affecting new EAPs? Well, I would say that's definitely an active time in ALS research. We are working hard on adding new regimens to the HEALEY platform trial. That's not an EAP, it's a separate trial. And I'm really, really hopeful that we're going to, announce some of these new regimens soon. It's taking a little bit longer than usual to add. I will acknowledge that, but we're certainly working hard with many companies to hopefully make that possible over the next few months. In terms of new EAPs, I mean, I'm not aware of any specific cuts to EAPs, and so again, I'm not aware of any specific information. But so far, again, what I know is that these programs are continuing, as far as I know. So question about sort of the workflow from a patient perspective. So if somebody is eligible for an EAP, how long does it normally take to get into an EAP? Well, I think this is a great question, and I will say it's also a hard question because certainly we see more people that want to join an EAP than the spots that we have available. So that's definitely, it's hard because sometimes, again, you cannot put everyone into the EAP and it takes some time. So I would say that the time actually depends on the site and the EAP. There isn't an average time or an expected time. I would say to talk to your physician and see, and ask, because it can be very, very different at every single site, because the people who actually do the research, the different sites may have different resources, number of team members available. The few questions about studies like different drugs like Prime C or TPN 109. So I don't know if they're going to have EAPs or if they're going to be in trials. Again, that's, I don't have any specific information at this time, but hopefully we will have more news soon. I think these are the questions. And Catherine, did you see any that I didn't answer by mistake or skipped by mistake?
Might be one in the same. Does spinogenics overlap with one of the study drugs you already mentioned?
No, where is that question?
So I put it in the chat. One of the common questions we've gotten via emails, people are asking, they've heard, through the grapevine about some things coming out of spinogenics. And I've had a couple people wondering if there was any word on whether there's an EAP that's underway for that company.
Again, I don't have information about specific companies or drugs. I know I only know the information about the EAPs that we are managing. I'm definitely hopeful that there will be more grants and more studies. But again, I don't know for sure right now. So the reason we have this webinar series once a month is because we many things are uncertain at this time. But hopefully, as we get more news, we will be sure to update the community about that. And speaking of another compound, there's a question about NU9 will be in a trial or in an EAP. Again, I don't know, unfortunately, the status of that. But as we hear more, definitely we'll keep you posted. That's why we have all these webinar series to try to get you answers and as quickly as possible as we learn about them. Yeah. And thank you so much, Catherine, for posting all the different links. And right now, there's different organizations and groups that have different trial navigators, EAP navigators. So I know the landscape may sound a little bit complicated. I would say, please always start with your physician and care team, because they may direction. And if they're not sure, maybe they can help you navigate some of these links to find what's best for you. With that, I think we took all the questions, and we'll be sure to be back with more updates. Thank you so much.